Hari Om everyone, Jai Julelal. Welcome to our 26th episode of Sanskriti and Samskar, the ongoing fortnightly show organized by Sri Dayal Harjani or Dadu Zen. So today we have a very interesting topic. It is called Unveiling Mysteries of Brain Hemispheres. It's a very interesting topic. What we'll understand, we'll deep dive in how does our brain work, what are the different parts of the brain in detail with the experts on our show today. So let's not waste much time. I will invite our first guest speaker of the day today, and I'm honored to invite him on this prestigious show. Please welcome Professor Devendra Kodwani from the United Kingdom. Welcome, Hari Om, Jai Julelal, Dr. Devendra. It's an honor it's an honor for us that you are part of our show. And thank you very much. I'll give a quick introduction for our viewers. Professor Devendra Kodwani ji, he is a professor of financial management and corporate governance at the Open University Business School in the United Kingdom. And he's been at this post since 2004. It's almost 20 long years being in the same post and in this same university. But he has a vast academic experience. He's been an academic since 35 years now. So again, a long journey. He has done a lot of research in different countries on different topics of finance, including Germany, UK, and many other developing and underdeveloped countries. And also, he has done PhD in finance. He's a very keen lover of philosophy. He says that it is his passion, it is his hobby to learn philosophy and understand more about it. Welcome, Dr. Devendra Kodwani ji, and welcome to our show.
Thank you, Vishal ji. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Great. Now I will invite our panel speaker for the day today, Dr. Harish Kumar Kakrani ji, on the show.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hari Om, Dr. Harish Kakrani ji. Welcome to our show. I will quickly introduce Dr. Harish ji. He has done, of course, a lot of into medicine, but he is a PhD in pharma sciences, and this he has done from SP University. It is, I think, Sardar Patel University, correct, sir?
Yes,
SP
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is in Gujarat, Vallabh Vidyanagar. He is a life member of many associations, to name a few, like Association of Pharmacy Teachers of India. And Kakrani ji has won many awards in his career. For example, the Institute of Chemistry has given an honorable award to sir. And he has been an examiner for many universities in different cities like Pune, Mysore, etc. in the same line of subject. Welcome, Dr. Kakrani ji, to our show.
Thank you, sir.
We are again honored. And now I would welcome Dada Dayal Harjani, Akka Dadu Zen, on this show, and please, put a word to our speakers, and let's start the show.
Jai Sri Ram. Jai Julelal. Professor and Dr. Harish, I would like to welcome you to our show with a poetic verse in Sindhi in your honor. Simple, just to have a little exchange of thoughts. चवंदा आहिनि दान आहे सिंधी जो शान, दान आहे सिंधी जो शान, पर सेवा आहे संतनि जो पैगाम, पर सेवा आहे संतनि जो पैगाम, जंहिं सचे दिलि सां सेवा कई तंहिंखे मिले ईश्वर जो परम धाम. सो हाणे असीं सभु शेवा पिया करियूं ऐं इन शेवा जे भाव सां असीं आरंभ करियूं था. We'll start the show today. Professor, I'm going to ask you one question before I shoot out some question. We are going to talk about either the structural or the functional part of the hemisphere. Which do you prefer?
We will talk about the hemispheres part of the
The
structure,
functional or the structural?
the functional part, not the structure.
Functional part. So nothing to do with pineal gland and limbic system or whatever, and how it connects the medulla oblongata. How does it affect the spheres? That we are not going to touch.
No, we are not going to open up the bonnet of the car and see how the machine works. We'll just see where the
Okay.
car takes us.
Okay. So then I'll shoot out the. Can I shoot out the first question?
Please.
And wherever you find that you want to show a presentation, then you can tell Pradeep to bring on the screen so that our viewers will appreciate, will have a visual impact of what you're trying to say.
Sure.
Okay. My first question is, what is the difference between the left and the right hemisphere brain?
Yeah, thank you, Dada. It is a very important question. For so evolution of life on Earth led to all forms of life and organisms, and one of those species is human species. Or mammals, more broadly, we are part of mammal kingdom, but we are also living on a planet where there are many other different types of species. And most of them, all of them have got some or other form of nervous system, neural system, what we call brain. But in most mammals, right up to mammals that you can see in the deep sea, going back to about 700 million years ago, where they have evolved, we find evidence that brain is divided in two parts in the middle. So if Pradeep can allow me to show a slide, then I will illustrate that with the image to talk about what I am saying. And thank you, Pradeep. So thank you. So to understand that, so I'm talking about the work that has been done by thousands of neuroscientists and neurologists who have studied the structure part of it, as you asked, and looked at how the brain looks and what happens in the brain. But there has been an obvious question: why is brain divided in two parts? If I quickly go and come back, so if you see, this is a picture of brain taken from top of the brain, and it has been sort of split. And you can see it is divided into two parts. At the bottom, you would see here, corpus callosum is a kind of a connecting tissue, the left and right side of the brain. So in a way, there are two types of agents sitting inside our brain that allow us to look at the world slightly differently. Each side looks at what we experience, allows us to see the world differently. It produces a different thing. So what Ian McGilchrist, who I have shown here in the picture, he's a psychiatrist, qualified medical practitioner, and a philosopher who first wrote a book in 2009 called The Master and His Emissary. So his argument was that the brain's two sides, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, look at the world and produce a different understanding of the world for us. And here by the world, I mean every phenomenon that we can experience through all senses. So the difference between the left and the right hemisphere is a kind of a nice illustrative example here at the bottom is a picture of Einstein caricatured here, where it says that the right side is more intuitive, mind is a sacred, so we see the sacredness, we see the whole and have a perspective. So if you can see there's an image of a bird, imagination. Okay, and the left side of the left hemisphere of the brain is more about getting things done. It makes sense of the world, and I will give a lot of examples of that later on. But it is to what we loosely call rational reasoning part of the brain, while intuitive mindset, the holistic view of the world, is produced by the right hemisphere. So Ian McGilchrist, in his book The Master and in his Emissary, emissary means mantri, servant of a king or a master. So he argues that right hemisphere is effectively the master who decides where to go, what to do, and then left hemisphere helps you to do what you want to do, to go from point A to B. But it's the right which tells you go from point A to B, and then left helps you to go from point A to B. So it's kind of why and how part of the decisions that we take. That right hemisphere helps you to make sense of whole world, whole existence, and the left hemisphere helps you to manipulate, exploit, problem solve, those kind of activities. So that's at the higher level kind of a description of difference between the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere.
So in that case, would you say that the left side is a rational aspect of the brain and the right side is emotional or intuitive?
Yeah, now that is a commonly
Could you let us know your views on that?
So simply people argue as if left is rational and right is emotional, but that is not true. Actually, the two see words differently. So you can exercise the rationality in the overall picture of a world. So you cannot be rational without having a whole picture in your mind. And similarly, you cannot be emotional without actually instigating the left side also. So it is not correct to say that left is only rational and right is emotional, because our brain works as a whole. It is not that when one is just doing numbers, for example. So when I'm doing mathematics, mathematics is argued to be a very rational kind of science. But actually, if you go back in history, for example, Pythagoras, everybody would know, those who are a bit familiar with the mathematics and geometry. Pythagoras was not not in that sense very rational. He wasn't doing numbers. He was looking at the whole image and thinking of geometry as in a very different way. He saw geometry as spheres and shapes rather than doing the calculations of angles. He saw geometry in music. He saw maths in music. Now we may say music is emotional expression of the rhythm and so on, but Pythagoras was trying to find maths in the music. Now that means he was also using his left as well as right brain. So it is not correct to say that the left is emotional, rational, and right is emotional. I wanted to actually show a quick 1 minute video. Now, I don't know, Pradeep, whether the audio would play when I play this.
Yeah.
So, is audio playing? No. But I think it will still make sense of the way. It's only 1 minute I want to show you. It answers the question, Dada, that you asked.
It's not so easy to comprehend this.
No, in 1 second it will become, because later the image is very clear. So what he's saying, that it is not that language sits only on the right and reason on the right and emotion on the right and reason on the left. That is false. Okay, because all the time we use both sides to make sense of the world. And I will give link to Pradeep. He can put that later on in the recording of the video. Okay. So this is what I wanted to say, that it is not correct to say that that left is rational and right is emotional. Actually, on this, you can see that there are many ways to understanding truth. Now, attention is an approach to, by paying attention, we understand truth. By perceiving things, we understand truth. By judging things, we understand truth. By apprehending a situation, we understand truth. We also apply social intelligence, like if you're sitting in a drawing room with several guests, then you don't start shouting. Okay. So what are we doing? We are using the knowledge of working in society, that you, when you're sitting with group of people, you are moderate, you talk properly with respect. What is that? That is social intelligence. Okay. There's emotional intelligence. So you go to meet someone who has lost a dear one, and then we know how we speak to person when we go to someone who has lost a dear one, and when we go to greet somebody who has got a baby in the family, we approach differently. Now, that is using emotional sensitivity, emotional intelligence. And there is a cognitive intelligence, like, making sense of a map, making sense of a spelling, making sense of an arithmetic problem. And then there is a creativity, where we imagine what is not there, but we imagine through our. So all these functions are performed by brain to understand, to make sense, to arrive at a truth. And all these functions use both sides of the brain. So it is not correct to say that left is rational and right is emotional. Actually, it is a lot more interdependent than what we imagine.
So then that means that there, in a given response to any aspect in life, it is the synchronization of both the hemispheres.
Yes, but if we will see in a short while that right hemisphere gives attention in a particular manner, and the left hemisphere helps us to pay attention in a particular manner. So it is harmonization, but also there is corpus callosum. So one of the things that scientists have been studying, that why, if we have gone for the split, if the evolution preferred a split, why did it hang on at the bottom, that little corpus callosum, to connect the two? And that is what's actually in the early part of 20th century, scientists actually started severing the two sides and see what happens to the person. Obviously, now you can't do that kind of a research, but you can. People had done that research in animals, for example, by actually separating the two parts and see what happens, what the two things do, and still things happen. So, what Ian McGilchrist finds in his book is that corpus callosum actually inhibits the dominance of one part by another part. It strikes a balance. So sometimes you have a great adrenaline rush, you want to do things, and then we say, oh, andar se awaaz hai, hold back. Now that holding back part is corpus callosum. So it is an inhibiting part of that bridge, that rather than be very emotional or very rational, sometimes we need to strike a balance. So that middle part actually works as an inhibitor, and some of the transmitters in the brain are if you think of a water reservoir and it has the floodgates, so you want to release little bit of water at some time rather than open the full gate of a reservoir, because that could flood the valley underneath. So that's a kind of controlling mechanism that the corpus callosum helps us to maintain the balance of over dominant view of left or right hemisphere.
And one question comes to the mind, that in a given situation, we are having the aspect of feeling and reasoning. So your right side, is it more, or left side is more concerned with reasoning, and the
Yes,
right side is more with feeling? And
Yeah.
the combination of both can be adjusted by what you call corpus callosum, and a response takes place with a combination of feeling and reasoning. Can you
So
elaborate?
they complement each other. So reasoning is step-by-step thinking, classification. So if I look at Google Map, it tells me turn right, left, and so on, right? So it is telling me go from here to here because that's the route where it goes. And for guiding me, it is using that knowledge of what is for each turn, what is a turn, and so on, left, right, and so on. So that is possible only if you have created a map with the full route, which tells you to reach from point A to B, there are these turns, left, right, and so on. And so the program needs to memorize these turns and also which turn to take. So the left hemisphere, in a way, categorizes things and classifies things that can help you to make what we call manipulate things and not in a negative sense, but we have to manipulate. Like when you are driving a car, you need to manipulate the steering, you need to manipulate the brake and accelerator. All those are little functions that are, there is no why I should, because you had to do, otherwise you will meet with accident or you will not reach the destination. So it helps you to take those right steps. While feeling is a different thing. So when you're driving a car and you lower the the window, you experience the wind or the temperature. If it is cold, you experience cold and you feel about it. Or you look outside window and see a beautiful green valley near the road. And that generates a very different sense of experience in your mind. So that is feeling, and that is where the right hemisphere helps you to experience that.
Okay. So now I'll invite our panel speaker to take over the questioning. Dr. Harish
Right.
Kakrani, please
Right,
go ahead
sir.
and
Right.
interact with Dr. Kodwani.
Right, sir. Can we say that our language is controlled from the left side and the visual imaginary from the right side of the brain? Can we conclude this one?
Unfortunately, not, because whole brain is involved in most things, including language. However, there are certain things about language which will tell that when you speak, when you use a word, produce a sound, or you put it on a paper, then left hemisphere is necessary because it has associated a shape, let's say A, with sound A, and has reserved that, okay, if I see that shape, I have memorized it means A, and even associate that with apple, for example. Now, so what left hemisphere does, it allows that uh, atomization of information that we experience. It categorizes. So if we can, let us say, go back to the slide, Pradeep, then I can explain that in one of the slides, that what's happening here. So if you see here, left is more used for, so there are models of brain, how it works. One of the models of brains is what is an information processor. Okay. So we think that we receive information from audio, video, visual, and everywhere. And then left hemisphere basically processes that information, names them, classifies them, categorizes them, so that it can be retrieved at the right time. So language is also a piece of information. So each shape has a meaning. A has a meaning for brain, that it is A, sound A, and it will categorize that. If it sees a table, something shaped like table, it will give it a name table and store it. So left hemisphere is very useful instrument to exploit the information once it is stored. Okay. While right hemisphere doesn't look at, and it is necessary therefore for the left hemisphere to divide things, to analyze things, to categorize. So you are a botanist, you have done a lot of research on plants. So I'm sure you are very used to categorizing the plant species, for example, the parts of the plant, what happens in each part, and it has a name. And that's all what left hemisphere helps us to do. Okay, for a financial manager, it is storing numbers about annual report. So it is using that, whether it's numbers or language or symbol, left hemisphere catalogs all that, but it doesn't know full picture. It only know that part of it. While
Okay.
right hemisphere looks at the whole picture. So when you are reading a poetry, now I started by poetry. Now, if you ask a machine to read that poetry, because today machine can read the poetry. So if you put those words that say it, machine will read those, but it won't produce a sentiment. about that poetry because that needs appreciation from the right hemisphere. So that's the difference with that.
Okay, right, sir. One more question I wanted to ask you. How do we know that left and right side of the brain lead to different perception? What we come across?
Now, this is a very important question because how do we know? Brain is not visible to us. So how do we
Right.
know whether left looks at the world differently than the right? Right. So one approach that scientists have taken, whether it is the neuroscientists who actually look at the brain structure by doing scanning, MRIs, fMRIs, and so on, and others is psychiatrists. So in this case, actually, you need evidence of physical what is happening. So one way, because you can't really, although in many decades ago, probably over a century ago, people used to actually go and affect the brain, but we can't do for ethical reasons. So one way to find out what is happening to our view of the world if there is damage to brain. Now, damage to brain can happen because of a stroke, for example, or somebody has met with accident and particular part of the brain has been damaged, and that then leads to certain effects. Okay, and when you observe those diseases that affect the brain are due to accidental damage to brain, if there is a change in the behavior of the person or how they see the world differently, that is an evidence that there is a connection between how the left or right brain affects the uh, way we see the world. So I will now show you a picture here. So imagine this. Now this is perhaps answering first the previous question. Now in this picture, if you see, a bird is looking at something on the ground, okay, on the left side, and
Yeah,
it is perhaps trying to capture an insect or a food grain what it sees on the ground. It is a food for the bird. Now
right,
to see that, it needs to look at it very carefully because what bird is looking at is a very small thing in size, and it needs to fully gaze at it, observe that with concentration, forgetting what's around it. It is just looking at little bit. So I can take example of Mahabharat. So when they go for Swayamvar, the Pandavas, Arjuna's task is the task set to them was, on the pole there is a fish on the revolving disc, and then whoever hits the eye of the fish would win over the princess. That's the story. Now that
yeah,
means the archer has to look at only the eye of the fish. Now that type of attention comes from left hemisphere. Okay, so it has to
okay,
ignore all other surrounding evidence or information. Okay, now that is what this
yeah,
bird is doing. But the
right,
birds
right,
on the right side are doing something different. The big bird on the right side, the duck, is looking around. It's not looking at a specific thing. Okay, now
right,
in life we need both type of attentions. One is a zoom in attention on something where you can do microscopic study of something detailed. Another is a global perspective on what's going around you. Now we need both those things, and that is one of the reasons we have these two ways of, because one is helping you to get the food. So bird which is looking down on the ground is looking for food, it will survive. The bird on the right is probably looking if there is any threat in the environment. Okay, so if you next time see a bird in garden or on the road, look at it. It will every few seconds it will look up and around and then pick up the grain, look up and around and look at the detail. Okay, why?
right.
Because on one side there is a reward for food. On other side you are trying to protect yourself from threat which could come from anywhere. So we
Ah,
need
right,
that both type of attentions.
right,
Now, if my brain is damaged, I may lose one type of attention, or I may improve the one type of attention. So, one
but
example is if you study this, people affected by autism. Okay,
yeah, okay, okay,
Autism is a brain syndrome where
right,
people what was that Hindi movie that Amir Khan made? Tare
Yeah.
Zameen Par, right? In
Yeah.
that, the child sees everything in the images, not in the numbers.
True.
Yeah.
Now, the child is suffering from autism. Now, his parents don't understand that he has a different type of intelligence. His brain processes images, not the numbers or the words. So, the autism affects particular way of looking at the world from left hemisphere or right hemisphere. So, that is one example of how we find about what's happening to the left and right hemisphere. Take this example. Sorry. Did we lose the presentation, Pradeep? Yeah, thank you. So look at this. I would invite the audience who are watching this to look at the triangle. What do you see? Okay. Now, here, many of you would have read it is a bird in the hand, right? Many of you would have read triangle says the bird in the hand. But some of you might have actually seen that it is a bird in the hand. There are two the's, right? The is written twice. Now, someone who actually saw two the's is paying attention literally to the language. And somebody who just read a bird in the hand took help of right hemisphere because they put the context in picture. That the two the's don't make sense. It is a typing error. And therefore, brain has ignored that the part, additional the, but made sense of the sentence. So that is using the context to make sense of the information given. Here, the information is there are 6 words, but 2 of them are duplicate. One of them is duplicate. So the brain ignores one which is duplicate and still makes sense of it. But what we call a person who depends on memorizing only and literally reads without understanding the meaning, that means it is dominated by the left hemisphere view. Similarly, on picture on the left, both the orange dots are same size.
Right.
Okay, both orange dots are same size, but one which is surrounded by gray circles looks smaller.
Smaller. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually they are same size. Now, what has happened? We have been fooled by a visual illusion by creating a different context around 2 orange balls. Okay, by changing the context, we have changed the meaning of the word.
Right.
Okay, so this is the evidence of how a right hemisphere would look at the context and make sense of the thing. Left hemisphere will just quantify and categorize and still not get the sense of the word. Okay, now we go to how we know about these things. As I said, it's a damage which can happen. Now, this is based on a study which is reported. So, in this case, there is a model of a cross and a block in the middle of the picture. Okay, when a person who had a severe, whose brain was severe, that means the corpus callosum connecting the cerebral hemispheres was disconnected, it produced what is called attention disorder about spatial sense. So we see 3D, 2D images. So in this case, cross is 2D, but block is a 3D image. Now, somebody whose brain was severed was asked to produce drawing of cross and model of block. So somebody who drew the picture with left hand produced the picture you can see on the left hand. Okay, this one. Can you see the arrow on there?
Right.
Right. Now this was produced by someone who had produced with left hand. Drawing was done with left hand.
Right.
And on the right side, the drawing was done by right hand, sorry. Now we know that all parts of body which are on the left side of body get their instruction from the right side of the brain. Okay, so if I am moving my left hand, the instruction to move the left hand comes from the right side of brain. And when I'm
Okay.
moving right hand, the
Right.
instruction to move is coming from the left side.
Left side.
So what is the meaning of this image? The meaning of this image is that when somebody drew this with left hand, it produced slightly better cross and block than somebody who drew with the right hand. That means the right hemisphere was helping the person to get more sense of the perspective, to draw correctly, cross and block, than the left hemisphere of the brain that was not helping it to draw properly. You can see the difference. So the right side of the drawing is function of left brain. Left side of the drawing here is function of right brain. So right brain helps you to get a bigger picture view of the world. Okay, so that is how we know. This is one piece of evidence, for example, which says right hemisphere sees differently. Look at this. Someone was given this broken parts of a puppet to assemble. The person whose right hemisphere was intact produced, let's say, the left side image. The person whose right hemisphere was damaged produced this image where they can't see, where they don't know how to put together legs or hands, because they have not put the neck also in the right place, because they can see that it's part of body, but they don't know how the whole will look.
Right.
So that is one way of finding evidence that attention disorder, which is devitalization. So they have basically put together without actually imagining a person. Okay, so when right hemisphere is damaged, the subject cannot put together whole from the parts. So this is another way.
Can we evaluate the efficiency of these two hemispheres separately?
Yes, that is what these researchers have done, many of them.
Okay.
So there's a lot of evidence, and this is coming not from a kind of an ordinary popular book. All these articles that are referred by McGilchrist are from academic journals on neuroscience.
Right, sir.
Okay, so
Right.
it's a
Thank
scientific evidence. Now, this is another one which, again, I would invite participants who are watching this video to see. So if you see on the middle and right hand, okay, and in the first one, right?
Yes.
Now, most of us would see first one. If I told you what is in this column here, most of us would say it is H.
H, yes.
And below that is 4.
4.
Yeah.
Yes.
But many may actually look in the detail and they may see just numbers 2. And it is made up of 2. So this is what has happened when somebody's left hemisphere was intact, but right hemisphere was not. They were interpreting this image as bundle of 2s. They were losing perspective.
Right.
When somebody's left hemisphere was damaged, but right hemisphere was perfect or not damaged, they were drawing H and 4 because they are looking at the pattern. They are looking at the landscape rather than the detail. So remember, I was talking about bonnet and parts under car. So a left hemisphere damaged person might just look at the parts without looking at the whole. Okay, so this is another evidence from neuroscience which tells us that our attention breaks things down in the left but loses the whole picture, and right hemisphere retains the wholeness and perspective and helps us to navigate the world.
But their coordination is necessary.
That is very necessary, yes. So even to draw this H on the right side,
right?
Okay. Now, if you're a right-handed person, you will still need instruction from left side to move the pencil in particular way.
Yeah.
But you will draw the picture, which is whole picture.
Right.
Okay. So that is how we know that left hemisphere looks at the world differently than the right hemisphere world.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, that's how the knowledge is created in this particular field.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Dr. Harish, do you have any more questions?
No, I had asked extra one also. Yes.
So
about the coordination.
There is one question from the floor. How can I train myself to analyze a problem consciously using the left or the right side of the brain so as to avoid making mistakes by being overtly emotional or analytical?
Yes. So before answering that question, I would say that question itself is production of left hemisphere. Because
Right.
left hemisphere is always trying to find solutions and apply tools and techniques. Okay. So it is a good question. Now, by default, it is very difficult to train. You had to be conscious that when only thing that interests you or you are going straight away into the deep. So if let's say you have a problem and you jump into the solution with the detail, okay. Um, so let's say I don't know how many of you do DIY, do it yourself kind of work in US, UK, etc. We get kits which are broken down for assembling a chair or a cupboard, and then you can straight away start unpacking and putting nails and screws and whatnot, rather than first thinking what's the model look like, and then where does this part go, where does that part go. So that's a holistic view. If I start applying just directly the left hemisphere and say, okay, there is a screw, there is a hammer, I need to hit it, then it is a problem, because some problems benefit from that approach. So the answer to the question is, what kind of problem are you trying to tackle? Okay. If the problem is not straightforward, it's a complex problem, then you need to look at interrelations between the things, codependence between the things. Hence, rather than becoming very analytical, you become a bit more synthesizer, see the interdependence. So if I give example of, let's say we invented plastic, okay? And we thought it's a very convenient way of carrying things, very moldable. So we start applying that knowledge to use plastic in every part wherever it is possible. And before plastic's side effects became clear, it has become so prevalent that it is now finding its way into oceans, and many species of fish are choking because they are swallowing plastic that we throw. Now, nobody at that time thought that when I am using this petroleum product and separating it from crude oil and make plastic containers, that it will find its way into the river system or in the ocean and spoil the climate or decrease the biodiversity on this planet. So we solved the problem of quick packing. So we analyzed the packing is much stronger when you put it in a plastic bag rather than a paper bag. So we saw the first-hand effect of, I think, Kakan, if you can mute it.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, because the question is coming from the floor.
Okay, so so the plastic solved one problem but created 5 more problems. So that is what left hemisphere can help you solve immediate problem without thinking about the long-term consequences. And so you have to see which problem you are trying to solve. If it is a complex problem, you have to look at the interrelationships between various variables before applying the left hemisphere skill of quickly analyzing and troubleshooting.
Great. Can I ask Vishal to come on the screen so he can continue the questioning? Vishal?
Yes, yes, brother. Sure, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
It's going, yeah,
It's
yeah.
all yours now. I'm off.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to leave
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Sure. So it's going very interesting and very deep dive in the subject. Just in the continuation of this, exactly what we are talking about, left and right hemisphere, I would like to understand that does this kind of a behavior take the holistic meaning from the experience?
Yeah. So left hemisphere tries to break things down and make a list of things. Okay. So I can give you example of how I have used left brain for something like this. So this is a book by Ian McGilchrist, right? Now, this is a very big book. Actually, whole book is made up of 2 volumes, okay, which is about 1,800 pages. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm showing you is Is the picture clear here? There's a white strip here.
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah. Now this white strip, there is a code. Okay. So this is called DV classification code. So all over the world, books in library are cataloged by subject, and then in each subject there's a sub-subject, and there's a number for each subject. So what I had done here to make sure that my library is organized in a particular way, I have used DV classification code and put a number on that. And all these hundreds of books therefore have a code. Now that's me using a very useful skill that left hemisphere produces of cataloging and helps me to find the book quickly. However, it doesn't give me the full picture of what is in that book just from the subject heading. So to develop a holistic view of any situation, whether it is geography or whether it is a social situation or whether it's a political situation, just counting does not help. So for example, we say particular country is rich because it has per capita income of these many $1,000s. Now that may actually hide some of the very unpleasant truths also, that that's an average income of X $1,000. But if there are people who are in the below average category, they may have a very different quality of life. Or but from left-hand hemisphere point of view, I have classified, but I have not developed the full picture. To develop the full picture, I need to see how it is affecting different groups of people. How is the quality of air affecting? So another example of left missing out the full picture is, let's say we look at urban policies. Governments spend a lot of time, money, and so on to develop big cities. Okay. One consequence of big cities is that you, if you are not careful, you lose a lot of trees, right, in that area. Now, trees are seen just as a part of beautification. So, city council, the municipality may put some parks here and there. Now, that is a left hemisphere view of replacing number of trees with number of trees. But actually, trees can be seen as public policy issue because it's a public health issue. Trees do a lot more than, give us oxygen. They retain moisture. They do all kinds of things. Now, if we saw tree only as a beautification part of city, we'll be just using a small piece of information about the use of trees. But if you saw tree as part of the whole ecosystem that sustains the area, that's a holistic view of the world. So left can help you implement holistic imagination, but that imagination has to come from right hemisphere. And that is why the title of the other book, which I showed, Master and His Emissary. So master is right hemisphere, emissary is the left hemisphere. So it can give that impression that sometimes we feel mantri is more powerful than the king. No, mantri can execute it, as the direction has to come from the master. So we saw example of that puppet. The right hemisphere destroyed the view of the person in that person's mind, and it put together a puppet without a semblance of a human being. It devitalizes the experience. So that is how left hemisphere takes away the holistic view of life. I showed you an example of that triangle. The words were, there, but two words the were there. Right hemisphere generally would ignore that, and left hemisphere will actually count that the extra the also, even though it has no meaning. So that is how left takes away by atomizing, by classifying, by categorizing. And when those are different parts, they don't make the whole. And left doesn't know how to deal with the whole.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. And one more thing, when a person subconsciously, he's not aware, I guess, even consciously is not aware about this mechanism, what is going on in the brain. But when someone is making some very important or a normal decision in life, like suppose you're going on a road and you say, I want to go left or right, for example, I'm just saying. So what makes that decision happen? What kind of behavioral changes or what kind of chemical changes happen in the brain to take that decision? Maybe it is wrong or right, but what instigates that decision? I just wanted to understand.
Yeah, it is driven by the purpose. So brain only helps you achieve a purpose. Brain can be seen as a problem-solving machine at one level. So if you want to go from point A to B, it will find out what's the optimal route for you. Okay, and then tell you, okay, turn this right, and so on. So then it is rest of it is as instructions which go in kind of a electric chemical way. The instructions pass on from that part of the brain which controls motor neurosystem. So as I said, if I want to move my left hand, the instruction will actually originate in the right side of the brain, and there is a left hand to be moved, then the instruction will come from the right side. But actually, there is now argument, and I think it is a good argument from the neuroscience, that intelligence is not embodied only in brain. Our whole body carries intelligence with us. Some of it is very intrinsic, doesn't even give us control. For example, when you enter a hot room, you don't tell brain to release perspiration. Sweating will start without your telling, right? If you are hungry, nobody will instruct your brain to tell you to, body will tell you need to eat.
Right.
So some of this thing is, some of the intelligence is embedded right across body to optimize. So some of the instant reaction that we get, for example, when somebody picks our skin with a pin, it doesn't need to travel from here to here and then go down to my foot. It may immediately come from my backbone, which has got tremendous nervous system as well. So some of these things are controlled through intrinsic thing. But there are some bigger issues where we take conscious decisions, where I'd like to reflect on a bit on your question, Vishalji.
Yeah.
And that is, if Pradeep can activate the presentation slide. So left hemisphere is principally concerned with manipulation of the world. Okay. And this image is taken from Mick Gilchrist's book. So I give all the credit to Mick Gilchrist. It's not my creation, but I feel it is such important thing that's worth sharing. While right hemisphere is concerned with understanding the world as a whole and how we relate to it. The word relate is very important in right hemisphere. It sees the relation between things. It sees the relationship between the concept. It sees the relationship between ideas. Okay. Left will create a list of things. Right will create the relationship and the whole picture. Left hemisphere principally looks at the detail and local here and now, as I said, grasping the reality now, zoom in, while right looks at the whole picture. Left looks at it, what is familiar. This is also a very important feature of the left hemisphere. What is not familiar, left doesn't know what to do. So while right is very open to see new things, explore new ideas. So in business, we teach two types of strategy. One is to explore, another is to exploit. So if I give you example, I am good at manufacturing plastic goods. Okay, so that's my competence as a company or business, and I'm making only plastic mugs. But somebody says, no, you can actually make plastic bottles. So I'm exploiting my ability to mold plastic now in different ways. So that's exploitation of my existing opportunities. There is an exploration. And somebody comes along, do I really need cups in the first place? And if I do need cups, do I need plastic cups or I need different types of cup? Or can people consume drink in different way? So that is exploring the world which is unknown and then coming up with a new imaginative idea. So that is the right hemisphere thing. Once you have got the idea, then exploitation is possible through left hemisphere. And therefore, actually, once that is decided that I want to produce a different type of container, let us say made of more recycled material from some plant-based cup, then left can help me solve the immediate problem. How do I produce? What kind of machine will work, and so on? Then you apply those things. So that narrows down the thing. While Right hemisphere opens up the world before us. It opens up the landscape. And there is a problem of little bit of overconfidence on left side. It says, I know, I know, I know. Right says, I don't know. Let me find more. Let me ask more. Let me investigate. And we know progress is through asking the right side of questions. I don't know. Socrates said one thing he knew very well was that he knew what he did not know.
Mm.
And he said that not he, perhaps somebody has put these words in his mouth, but they are nice words. So I will tell you the story that the difference between a fool and a wise person. A fool thinks that they know um, what they know, and wise person would say, I know what I don't know.
Mm.
Okay, so knowledge of one's ignorance
Very nice.
is what opens up the opportunities and keeps you curious. And curiosity, creativity, all those are opened up by imagination rather than saying, I know my toolkit is there, I know what the solution is. So left immediately goes to the storehouse of the stored knowledge and thinks it has got all the tools. But the problem may be something that doesn't fit any tools.
Mm.
So that is the difference between decision making, which is dominated by the left hemisphere, and an exploratory approach that the right hemisphere allows. And that has a lot of managerial implications, business implications as
Mm.
well.
Mm. Right. Interesting. Very interesting.
Vishal, what do you think?
Yeah. So, excellent. That's very
Are you
insightful.
through with
Very
your question,
insightful.
or you still want to ask?
Yeah, just small last question, just to wrap up this final answer by the final thought, or rather, I would say.
Hmm.
So, if we put it, Professor, if we put it that way, that the right is the master and the left is the obedient, the karta, you can say like that. So, whatever. So, is this the right frame to follow, or there should be a little bit of discrepancy between the both, or you should just follow what the right hemisphere says?
I think right. So categorization, in a way, the kind of difference that Ian McGilchrist is putting, that left should be the servant rather than the master.
Hmm.
It's very, very insightful because we know that left hemisphere looks at only parts. It remembers little things. It remembers past. So it doesn't have that capacity to look at world as it is whole. So if you look at the present big challenge we face, let us say climate change, and that is the function of left hemisphere dominance. Actually, the subtitle of Master and Emissary is the divided brain and the making of Western world. So many years ago, the dominance of the left brain, it's one can trace it back to some big developments in the philosophy in 16th, 17th century, maybe 15th century, when René Descartes, who was a French philosopher, said that mind is different from body. So that whole debate around separation of mind and matter came. And then Francis Bacon, who was an English philosopher, they said nature is there for us to conquer. Now, what has happened in the process, that domination, that I am exploiting what resources I have on this planet, is a left hemisphere domination. So that exploitation to satisfy my this or that need has led to uncontrolled exponential use of the resources, and it has led to material development. But now we are seeing the consequences of that development. But the right hemisphere would have said, look at that, you as a person are part of nature. Nature has got a lot of complicated interdependencies. So if you destroy one dependency, you will create a lot of problems for others. So right hemisphere therefore takes a bigger, longer term perspective. It imagines the whole rather than parts. So I would rather trust a person who can think long term and strategic than somebody who can solve my current problem. So that is why I think he is right in saying that right hemisphere should be our main guiding force, and then use the left hemisphere to deliver some of those things that we think are right things to do. In management, we say differently, even though it's said without this context, but I think now there is a relationship. We use two words, being effective and being efficient. And we say being effective means to do right thing, and to be efficient is to do things rightly. So you can do a wrong thing rightly, but that is not being effective. You may be efficient at destroying a thing. So you may be very efficient at destroying the things, which is the wrong thing to do, but you may be inefficient in making a thing, good thing. We are effective, but not efficient.
Correct. Very nice. Very nicely said. Two words, but they mean so much. Sure. Dada, it was great. I'm done with my questions, and you
I'm
can
just
wrap up.
trying to figure out because to me, this has been one of the most piercing shows that we have conducted. And it's a very
Yes.
thought-provoking show. And things are still not clear as to how the left brain and right brain functions, and how do we prove ourselves what Professor Kodwani has just mentioned. So
Right.
I must commend the Professor Kodwani on his command of knowledge and about the functional aspect of the brain. Pranam to you. You're too good. You're a very, I can say, a very rare Sindhi to have such a profound knowledge on the functions of the brain, and very admirable qualities. But I was just thinking, if a Sindhi would watch this show, त हू चवंदो यार मूंखे यार ब्रेन लेफ्ट ब्रेन या राइट ब्रेन सां कहिड़ो मतिलबु, असांखे ॿुधाए नाणो कीअं ठाहिजे, कहिड़े ब्रेन मां नाणो ठहंदो उहो ॿुधाए असांखे. So what do we tell them on that basis? Because it has happened to me when I was writing my book, and when we had a book launch, मूंखे हिकिड़े माण्हू अची चयो यार तूं अहिड़ा किताब तो लिखी के सम्झंदो ई कोन, असांखे ॿुधाए नाणो कीअं ठाहिजे. And this show is really profound and deep, and I doubt if everybody can penetrate the way you have penetrated the whole thing of studying more than 1 million words as per your discussion with me. Do you have anything to say to the viewer about making money, or to end the show with a little joke?
They say, I'm an academic, so they say about teachers, there's those who can, they do, those who can't, they teach. So I'm a professor of finance, and still I teach finance rather than make money. So joke apart, money, one can have a separate show on money, the myth called money. But it is very much instrument of making transactions happen in society, and then you are wanting to control the instrument, but you have a finite ability to make transactions in life, because after a certain time it will come where even if you want to engage in transaction, you wouldn't know what to buy. So you can make money. It is very important part of living. And there are different ways to go about making money. I don't think in this show it is right to talk about those things.
No, we don't have the time, but you think you can construct a show in which you can tell, since you're already in the finance department, so you can add 2 and 2 together and make a show how to make money using your left and brain, left and right, or something to that effect,
Yeah, actually,
you have a full house.
The indication was there in the discussion that new things come through right hemisphere. Actually, left can help you manipulate things, but before you can produce a thing, you need to decide what to produce, and that production, or the idea of what to produce, or what customer need you want to satisfy through which product or service, is a very imaginative activity. And that means you need actually a lot more right hemisphere think approach to explore what will work to meet the needs of the customer or a buyer than how you meet the customer. So, I'll give you a simple example. When COVID happened, I live in a city where we have very laid out place. It's a very small city in England, and all the streets are very well laid out. The postcodes are, everything is very easy to manipulate, finding a place. So an American company launched a robot service here for delivering grocery because people were not going out to buy things in the store, and robot was a safe thing because not communicating with the human beings. So somebody saw that opportunity of COVID and launched that robot delivery service for delivering goods to home. Now, that was imaginative idea because that was a need. People were afraid to go out. They wanted bread at home, so they could order online, and a little robot on a wheel will come and deliver things to your doorstep. Now, that was right hemisphere idea, but then you need a lot of artificial intelligence, the data analysts, the engineers to design that box that travels on wheels and comes outside your box, door. All that is left hemisphere. But somebody to think I could use the robots to deliver goods and services was the right hemisphere. So if you want to make money, even then you need a lot of imagination, and imagination is not the strong point of left hemisphere.
Imagination is the right side.
Yeah. Because it is about unknown. It is about new things.
Coming to the crux of the matter and knowing our Sindhi audience, हू चवंदो असांखे यार लेफ्ट या राइट असांखे ॿुधाए नाणो कीअं ठाहिजे यूज़िंग द हेमिस्फियर्स टू आवर एडवांटेज. So maybe you could construct a show next time.
We will think about it.
If we can do. But one thing that puzzles me is, see, brain is inert matter. It's a mind and it is just an instrument of transferring subtle vibrations to the mind. But the mind cannot be conveyed without an instrument, and the brain is subtle enough to catch the vibrations of thought and put it into the gross action of speech or action. So I'm wondering whether we should give so much importance to the functioning of the left and right brain, or our mind is more important than anything else. That is
you raised a very different but profound philosophical issue of the difference between brain and mind, and where is mind located? Does it have a physical location, or is it just another name for brain? Because you are right, if you start examining the brain's physical characteristics, it is just matter, but it produces things which are not material. So there is a huge body of work and literature that has gone into examining a non-materialist view of scientific inquiry, where it disregards it acknowledges the physical features of our body, which is brain and other parts, but then it looks beyond what is it producing. So consciousness is not material, but somehow it is produced by the brain. So we are going into a very different field there, and I wouldn't venture that into that conversation of what is the difference between mind and brain in the short video, because it's very, very it needs a lot of conversation.
I think there should be a blend between the esoteric, between the East and the West way of thinking, in my opinion. Because what you have conveyed is basically Western research based only on matter. But for matter to be activated, you need something stronger. Our mind is a force that conveys to the brain. It's not the brain, brain only transfers the sensations of the body through the nerve system to the mind. The actual thing is a mind. The main force behind everything is a mind. But the Western philosophy or Western research will not agree to that, right?
No, Western research is very open now. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of work going on in even in some universities, and I know that there is a university, State University of California, has a full department related to integrated studies, which looks at all these questions, and there's a very serious group of people looking at it. But as I said, it's a question which requires a lot more careful thinking. It requires a lot of interest in people to go through this, uh, in a slow way, because there's no right or wrong question here. It is inquiring into whether the mind and brain are two different things, and how do you approach knowing where is the mind, and does it matter? Because brain is producing orbit. If we acknowledge there is something called consciousness, it is possible to produce consciousness. We experience that, but that is not independent of brain.
Yeah, of course, that becomes a deeper subject. For my last question, but before I ask you, Dr. Harish, would you like to ask any question? You have any? I can't hear you.
Are you able to listen?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Do you have any doubt or any lasting question?
No, I have learned a lot from. To be asked now.
Yeah. ठीक है, विशाल, you're off.
Dada, we can
Vishal,
conclude the show. I'll go for the
Would
player.
you like to ask any last question? You have any
No, I'm
doubts?
good, Dada. Yeah, I've
true.
learned a lot today. Yeah.
Yeah. But my question is, Professor Kodwani, I hope you don't mind. The viewers will ask, by now you have told us about left brain and right brain. How can I enhance myself by knowing this? How can I enhance my life by knowing the functions of the left brain and the right brain? How can I use it or develop it?
So it's a question quite contrary to what Ian McGilchrist would actually allow being asked of his work, because it's very left hemisphere type of a question. How part of it? What do I do with it? What's the use of this knowledge? But one use is that you start appreciating a lot of things that you generally ignore. Say, works of arts, for example. It gives you perspective. There is world beyond utility of everything. So being aware that that is what actually has got us here, that is the imagination. Then you start paying attention to those landscapes when you are passing by in a train. You start paying attention to how the same words produce a poetic experience versus instructions. So I can give you instructions to move from one place to another as a written piece, but I can also rearrange those words to make poetry. So being aware that our experience in life experience is made up of solving problems through left hemisphere, but also appreciating and taking a holistic view of your life or career. So one way you can apply this knowledge is that you do job for 8 hours a day, whether it's a business or job. But then you say, okay, 8 hours I sleep, 8 hours I do job. What do I do with 8 hours that I remain? I have got extra, or 4 hours, whatever free time I have. Now, just thinking about that question is a right hemispheric question, because that brings in the question of what is it that appeals you? What is it that you appreciate? So having that bigger picture view of the world develops that sense of belonging, a relationship you see between you and other people, between you and nature, between you and other creatures, between you and knowledge. So right hemisphere allows you to explore those relationships. We know a reductionist philosophy in physics can break down things in parts and atoms. You can explain the parts, but you can't explain the whole. So having this understanding helps you put the life in a perspective of holistic living, rather than existing to earn a bit of money and be done with it, or produce and recreate. So I hope just appreciating that we are getting exposed to two ways of looking at world, and if one view becomes very dominant, then we will live particular quality of life. If another becomes dominant, we live a particular quality of life. Though two will be different.
And we'll have to, we are running out of time now. And I would love to take this show on at a later on stage with other questions. But endingly, I would like to know how's your, you had started some Sindhi class, right? How's it going, by the way?
A few people come to learn Sindhi. I enjoy talking to them.
Your online thing is going on?
Yeah, I talk to them every Sunday for a few 1 hour or so.
So you're teaching what, Romanized Hindi or what?
I know I'm teaching Arabic Sindhi.
Arabic. So you're teaching them how to write Allah Famba and all that thing.
Yeah.
But do you think that Arabic Sindhi is necessary or Romanized Sindhi is catching on? Because I've been to various places and they find it very difficult to do the Arabic Sindhi.
So people born and brought up in.
There's a big question going on in everybody's mind. But how do we maintain our language, Sindhi language, and what script to use? Big question.
Yeah, I'll give a very brief answer. We should not worry about script. We should worry about listening and talking.
The sound.
Yeah. So if people can listen and understand Sindhi, it is more important than whether they know.
That's good
script.
enough.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you once again for coming
Thank
on
you.
our show.
Thank
Thank you very much, Dr. Harish.
Right, sir.
It was
Thank
a
you very
pleasure.
much.
We'll catch you
Right.
on your botany thing at later on, and you can tell us
Right,
all
sir.
about
Most welcome.
your experiences on in botany.
Right.
Vishal,
Most welcome.
you can conclude the show.
Yeah. Yes, sure. So
Thank you
today
once
is a
again.
special request. Thank you very much. So today is a special request. Today we have a small prayer on Julelal Sai. It's a
Yeah.
very short prayer, but it's very interesting. It comes from a Julelal Mandir based in Bhavnagar in Gujarat.
Oh, very good.
They call it as a Akhe Jo Mantra,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
it says, Lalan ja lal sain, कर भलायूं भाल साईं, लालण जा लाल साईं, कर भलायूं भाल साईं, मां ॾियां चूरियूं, मुंहिंजी आशा कयो पूरियूं. This is a small akha made by
That's very
Julelal
quick
Mandir
prayer. I
Bhavnagar.
wish it would have been longer.
Yeah.
We would have enjoyed so much. Next time, make it
No, this
bigger
one I
prayer.
like. It was
I'd love
nice.
to hear
Yes.
more about Julelal Sai
Yeah.
next time. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll meet again. We'll talk again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Jai Shri Ram.
Right,
Jai
sir. Thank you.
Julelal.